Towson will be bringing all of that to you. And, of course, if there's any breaking news at all, you'll get it first on our WNST tech service. Luke's going to be at the ballpark. I'm going to be watching the Wizards all week, but every other night, we get back to hockey again on Thursday night. I am still toweling off after 6 gloriously, deliciously, dreadfully awful. They were like the fine line between heaven and hell, but the Caps have survived, and they're on to Pittsburgh. We'll be broadcasting live all next week from the ins and out and downtown and all that for Games 3 and 4. But in the meantime, we're waiting Game 1 in conjunction, of course, with the NFL draft, because one great thing in a night's not enough. She is also, like all of us who are hockey fans, staying up too late, probably drinking too much coffee, not getting enough rest, and certainly all of our nerves are a little frazzled. She is the daughter of Caps legend and iconic number 18, Craig Laughlin. I did ask for his permission before I had his daughter on the program. She is now a voice of Comcast Sportsnet and bringing us all things cheer and hockey in good times and bad times. She is Courtney CSN. Out on Twitter, we welcome Courtney Laughlin onto the program for her maiden voyage here at WNST. What's up? I watch you guys jibber-jabber in hockey all the time. It's so good to have you on, Courtney.
Thank you. Well, first of all, did you go clear those nice adjectives with my dad, too? He'll be so happy that you said such nice things about him.
No. He was pissed at me when I had him on. You know why? Because I said to him, and I didn't mean this disrespectfully, but I said to him, he's become an institution and an iconic figure around the Caps. And I said, there were great players like the Langways and those guys. And I think over 4 decades now, your dad smoking out. I mean, Joe, the people that have been a part of the broadcast, I love the broadcast. I love hearing your dad on the, but I called him not a great player, and then I went back and looked at the stats from a couple of those years. He had a couple of great years. He really did. I feel bad that I sort of insulted the legend of your dad. So but I do love the broadcast. And by the way, I'm going to miss that they're not actually doing the game. So they've become part of the pre and the post game along with you guys this week, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and they'll be involved kind of throughout the rest of the series, whether on pre and post, and maybe even on the new show, the Caps Overtime that we do after the game. But man, I am pumped. I'm excited, and we all have been drinking a ton of coffee for these late night overtime games. But you know what? I'm excited for the Caps and for the next journey that they have looking ahead.
All right, well, it was this past journey that will define their next journey, right? And Trotz sat with us about 6 weeks ago up at Greenmount Station when we were swabbing for the bone marrow registry, and he said every one of these series takes a little piece out of you, and you got to be careful about how much of that piece you give. And last year, maybe the Flyers took too much out of them. This time around, time will tell as to whether all of those late nights in Toronto and back and forth and the extra game and the extra ice time and all of the emotion that went into Toronto for their fan base and, your dad's crazy homeland up there and 10,000 people outside of the hockey rink, getting hammered and wearing blue. There were 2 or 3 in red there. I think we both saw those folks. But,
they were,
the emotion of all of that, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. For now, I'm going to take it as a good thing until I see what the legs look like late on Thursday night and late on Saturday night.
I do think it's a good thing, and I think it's a good thing mentally for them to kind of be in that position. I mean, you've heard words being thrown around all season long, adversity or battle-tested. The big thing for me, though, coming into this series, what I think the Leafs helped prepare the Caps for is the speed. Nate Schmidt even said the other day that the top 3 fastest teams, New York Rangers, Penguins, and Toronto. And so I think when you especially had a series like this one that was so close and so tight, that it really had to push the Caps to test their speed. Do the Caps need to play better? Yes. I don't think we've still seen the best Caps yet in the series versus the Leafs. But the one thing that I just keep coming back to is the speed. And we do all know how fast the Pittsburgh Penguins are. And so I think that that's something that the Caps can definitely build on coming into this next round.
Courtney Laughlin can be followed at Courtney CSN out on Twitter. She is opining on all things Caps. And, look, you get it honest to your old man and having been born into this thing. What year were you born? I don't even know how old you are or how many of these horrific endings and memories that you have. But as an example, I was in the locker room covering the team as I was 15, 16 years old at the time when your dad was there. So I'm a Sprite 48, and not all of my my beard hairs are silver. But I remember '87. I remember the tough times. I remember big wins in that era and big Rod Langway goals, and I remember every painful loss of for younger people, the modern era. You've been suffering, but we've all been suffering. You kind of had to know this was going to go through Pittsburgh, and it's probably going to go through Madison Square Garden too, right? If we're all betting people at this point, this is not going to be an easy road. It's the Stanley Cup playoffs.
No, and there really is. I mean, some people will argue that there are easier roads for other teams. Maybe the New York Rangers did have an easier road just because of the way the matchups work and the seedings with the Metro Division and the wild cards. But look, I'm 100% with the Caps on this one, and that look ahead. And I know it's tough, all this talk about history and that kind of thing, but I'm a firm believer of looking straight ahead, not looking back, and kind of staying in that moment. And I think the Caps have an amazing opportunity right ahead of them. And it starts Thursday night, and it starts Thursday night to kind of rewrite this history, rewrite the narrative of the Caps, because it is a different team, a different roster, different coaching staff, different management. And I think this is the best team that we have seen the Caps in terms of how they are built for the playoffs. Last year we saw what happened against specifically, the Penguins' third line. Well, the Caps went out and they did those things that they thought were going to help them be better in this position. They have Eller, they have Shattenkirk, and to me, they are the best built team for playoffs and going against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Well, when it comes to these the fringe players, and I use that with your dad, not in a sort of a negative way, but saying it's never Ovechkin or Backstrom that are the stars. It's always your goalie, but it's always a Johansson. It's always a Justin Williams. It's always an Eller who played a great series, or it's a Jay Beagle that's going to be that guy that wins the damn thing for you in overtime. I mean, your dad and I laughed about the legend of John Druce from 30 years ago, and and I remember that era vividly. And 30 years later, I don't know who the star is going to be, but it's probably going to be one of those guys. Not with Ovechkin having a hat trick in Game 7, right?
Right. Well, and I mean that is what playoff hockey is about. We call them these unexpected heroes because the matchups and the lineups are so tight. You have Backstrom going against Crosby. You have Kuzi versus Malkin. And so after that, that's when you need those heroes to step up. But I think, like I said, I think that the Caps are in good shape. They have great depth. And if you look at on the Penguins side, too, hey, not so flashy on the blue line right now, especially missing guys like Letang. They were actually, outshotted 4 of their 5 games in the playoffs. So I think the Caps are so battle-tested coming into this round, and I loved, we were talking about it last night on our show, which overtime goal did you guys love best? And everybody said the Tom Wilson's for that reason, whether it was Wilson's, whether it was Williams, or whether it was Mojo's, the other night for Game 6, but it was all about unexpected heroes. And that's what playoffs is all about, is who's the next guy that's going to step up when you have these line matches being shut down, specifically in the top 6 on both teams.
Penguins have the speed. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And, whether that speed kills or not, I've had a lot of folks that believe that, in watching these games every other night, everyone had a chance to watch the Penguins if they wanted to, that they look as good as they've looked last year, if not better. And I really was a big believer in that Columbus team, having seen them play and watching the Caps scrap around with them a couple of times late in the season. I believe Columbus was going to give them much more of a battle. Boy, the Penguins just got up early and often in that series and just did what the Caps couldn't do up in Toronto, which is, take a 2-0 lead or a 3-1 lead early and just shut the game down the way the old Devils used to do.
And I think kind of what Columbus, I was Columbus all the way. I really wanted to see them pull through, but I think what happened to Columbus is they kind of got away from playing their game a little bit. Yeah, we saw a ton of hits. We saw chippiness play a part, but it's being physical kind of for a reason, and making sure that you're not kind of running around. I think Columbus may have gotten away from trying to drill guys, which against a Pittsburgh team you can't do because they have so much skill. And so I think that the Caps do have to make sure that they use their speed against the Penguins. But I think that we've seen that the Caps can skate with one of the fastest teams of Toronto Maple Leafs.
She is Courtney Lachlan. She covers all things hockey, and more hockey. And Game 1 upon us on Thursday night. We'll be broadcasting live from Pittsburgh all next week for Games 3 and 4, while Luke mans the Birds as well as the NFL Draft this weekend. And, of course, the Ravens will have some new players. And for the Rock the Reds, this end of an era for this group of players is near. Whether they go one more series or whether they hoist the Stanley Cup and Trotzy brings that load up here on the Parkway and we drink Tom Ebright's Skipjack champagne out of it, which I'm hoping to do in early January. But this really is the end of the road for this group of players. I mean, this thing's going to get busted up pretty good because of the salary cap at the end of this run. I know the guys know that, but I think as fans, this team's going to look different next year no matter how this thing ends, right?
Yeah, and, I think, General Manager Brian McClellan has been saying it kind of all year and starting last season, too, that there's a 2-year window for the Caps. And don't think for a second that they don't know that. And I think that they are ready for this next challenge. I mean, Justin Williams even tweeted the other day, hey, 16 minus 4 is 12, 12 to go. So kind of staying that course and taking it one game at a time. And that is something that I have loved watching this particular Caps team do all season long, is stay in the moment. Sometimes, during the season on that random night on Tuesday, you'd see them down a goal or two, and they'd rally to come back. And to me, that's a mentality. That's something in the locker room that necessarily you can't explain, but they're never too high, never too low. And I think something like that of staying the course, and they know to a man that this team will look completely different. So for them to kind of focus in on that and to use that as a motivational tool, I think is great because, locker rooms and that camaraderie within a team and using that as kind of like an internal motivation, I think is going to be key for the Caps.
You're working with your Pops Hockey School down there. I give a little plug out for things other than pre and post for you guys, but I know hockey is the family business in the Lachlan family, right?
It is. It's eat, sleep, breathe hockey pretty much around here. So we actually run a hockey program out of Laurel, Maryland called Network Hockey. So we're on the ice pretty much three times a week starting in June going to August. And we're actually I'm starting a women's clinic. So for beginner to kind of intermediate women hockey players, it'll be once a week on Thursday nights. So if you want to come learn how to play hockey from me, we'll have some fun too. We'll do maybe some wine tastings or something like that, maybe. Maybe after practice.
There's no whining in hockey. There's no crying in hockey. Come on.
I'm calling them chalk talks, but I'm like, you know what? With these women, I would bring a favorite bottle of wine and we can just chat and talk hockey. But no, looking forward to that. And yeah, I mean, I coached for several years, so I'm looking forward to kind of being back on the ice. And teaching women how to play hockey because it is the greatest sport, obviously, it's the greatest sport out there.
It's the best game you can name, the good old hockey game, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I had a great time in Toronto and being around people that have the passion, and obviously your family and the Caps fan base at this time. It is a lot of fun. I know you guys don't have the games, but you're doing pre, you're doing post, and of course you're always out there on Twitter doing your thing as well. She is Courtney Lachlan. You can follow her at Courtney CSN. Many do, and keep the faith, kiddo. We're all in this together. All right. I mean, just get some more coffee brewing, hydrate yourself. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it through this thing, I think.
I'm feeling confident.
All right. Well, a little of that rub off on me when I go to Pittsburgh next week. Great having you on for the maiden voyage. Appreciate the visit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You got it. Courtney Lachlan. You can follow her out on Twitter as well as at CSN. You can follow us in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day for all things hockey. Baseball, we had Terps moves last week with Dookie's coming in again, as well as the Kentucky Derbies next week. We got the Preakness is 3.5 weeks out now at this point. We got the Wizards. And, of course, the draft on Thursday night. It is an incredibly busy time around here, but I am a very available individual. If you need any information on our road trips, Green Bay, Nashville, Minnesota, and London, all on sale now. We have the $100 discount this week and next week off of every seat on all of our trips. We're trying to get as many people in as early as we can to let the airlines know what's going on, as well as our hotels and our game tickets and our transportation. Green Bay, Nashville, leave it to us. We got you handled. Go to the road trips tab at WNST.net. All of the information's there, and we can give you some personal service too. Find me out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere the internet goes, including big time tech service weekend. This is the number one weekend of the year that if you're on our tech service, you're going to get every Ravens move, trades, backs, force, draft picks, who they are, how to find them. Our social media will be buzzing all weekend. We'll be selling road trips. So we'll be in your face all weekend long with football, and more football. And I know a lot of you are getting in the car and driving up to Philly. I highly recommend that you go take part in the draft up there. That's going to be a great weekend for some family fun if we get some good weather up in Filthy as well. So big times around here, and of course, anything you miss comes to you in the morning newspaper. It's all brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. You can do it there. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.